Okay, it's Wednesday, and we are 1 week closer to regular season. Welcome to another edition of Buc What You Heard. My name is Gene. You can reach me at Super Heavyweight. You follow me, I'll follow you back. Definitely enjoy the love that this show is getting. I'm glad to have Michael Pless on with me here, and we will definitely be talking about some different things with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bear with me 1 second here, see if I can get this. Michael Pless on with you here, and we will definitely be talking about. Give me a second here. Let me turn this other. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bear with me 1 second. Turn this off. And we will definitely be talking. Get this turned off. Here. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that, fellas. So tonight, we're getting closer to the end of the 53-man roster, and tonight we're going to talk about who stays and who goes. And this is a really exciting time for me because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are in a very interesting position where you have a lot of players that will be able to help this team. And I want to say that Jason Light has done a great job getting players in, and I think with all the competition we've had, this has really been something to really watch. I think this has been pretty special. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the roster. I mean, going back 4 years before Jason Light got here, I mean, it was not looking very promising, and now you have a roster that could probably compete for the next several years going forward, which is very exciting. He's drafted and built this core up has been very impressive, and now you just have something that fans can get excited about and have a contending team, and we should be able to compete for this division year in and year out with Jameis Winston leading the way. And you have defensive leaders like Gerald McCoy and Quan Alexander and Levante David, young Vernon Hargraves and Noah Spence. So it's very, very promising. And I'm just glad preseason's over. Finally we have one more game tomorrow, but I'm ready to, see what this weekend's going to look like. I think you're going to see a lot of good players be let go around the league. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what the roster looks like come next week and going into September 10th against Miami.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the NFL is, it stands for not for long. And we see that today with Joe Hayden getting cut. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers go ahead and sign him. I know that there were a lot of Bucs fans looking at him, but keep in mind, Bucs fans, Tampa is, I think, number 19 on the waiver wire. So that's a long way to drop. There are players that are out there available. That's a real long way to drop to get us certain players. So remember to keep that in mind as we're looking at all this. But tonight we want to talk about the different players that we think have a chance to make this team, and other players that haven't really done a lot to help themselves. So what we're going to do, normally I would start with the offense, but with the offense is kind of low-hanging fruit. You know what you got, sort of. And I kind of wanted to start out with the defense. And Michael, I'm going to let you start this off because I always run my big mouth. So I definitely want to get your input because I feel like it's really important. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll take it by positions. We'll break it up. I would start with the safety position just because I think that's the least in doubt. I think you pretty much know what you're going to have there. I think they're going to keep 4 there, as far as you'll have Chris Conte, your Keith Tandy, J.J. Wilcox, Justin Evans. Those are going to be your main 4 safeties. And then obviously Josh Robinson, who's safety but more corner. He's a special teams guy. So that'll be your safeties there. So and then moving to the defensive backs, the cornerback position, I think they're going to keep 5. I think your main 5 are pretty much in place. I know they picked up some guys, over the last week with certain guys getting injured, but I think the main people are going to be, you'll have your Vernon Hargreaves, Brent Grimes, Ryan Smith, who I think is playing pretty well. I know a lot of people have been criticizing him, but I think he's been playing pretty outstanding. Robert McClain has really stood out to me. I think he's going to make the team. And then you also have Javian Elliott. So I think Elliott and McClain is really interesting. I think they'll be kind of interchanging in the first couple of weeks, see who takes that nickel spot, just to see it play out. But I think you'll see more. I see them playing together a lot, like switching in and out. But I think those would be your main cornerbacks right there. So they'll go with 5 there. Gene, do you have any thoughts on that? I mean,
yeah, I think you kind of stole my thunder a little bit. I'm looking at Javian Elliott as being somebody that sticks. A guy that I liked at the beginning of the season was Jude Aje-Barima. Unfortunately, he was hurt. I think McClain has done enough to really help himself. He didn't put himself in a bad position to mess things up. I think Justin Evans is a guy who's going to be able to sit on the bench and he's going to be able to learn. And they're not forcing him out on the field based on who they have with Keith Tandy and Chris Conti. So, I'm happy. I know before the season started, going into the off season, you heard a lot of people talking about the cornerback position and the safety position. But I think that with the emergence of J.J. Wilcox, I think he's really helped himself in camp, being consistent. And in a few games, he's helped himself as well. He's one of those guys that I think that we've got more out of him than, say, the Bradley McDougall, who was here. I think, in my personal opinion, and we haven't gotten to see him with live bullets yet, but I feel like he's an upgrade over Bradley McDougall just based on what he's able to do. So I think that he'll definitely be a plus.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I agree as well. I think the secondary is pretty much set, like as far as starters and your depth pieces. And, the only thing I can think of if that changes is maybe perhaps this weekend a key player gets cut for some reason, like a TJ Ward who's had some rumors as far as trades. Maybe one of like a veteran corner maybe gets let go, but I don't think we're going to go with that just because this defense is so predicated on communication and understanding schemes. So it's kind of late to be adding a key player like that, late before the season starts, like a TJ Ward or someone along those lines. But yeah, let's move on to the linebacker position now. The linebackers, this is where it gets very interesting as far as who stays and who goes. I think it's a battle between Cameron Lynch and Riley Bula for that last spot. I think your main guys keep 6. If they keep 6, I think it'll be between Lynch or Bula. But if they keep 5, then unfortunately, I think Lynch and Bula go, because I think you're going to have obviously Quan Alexander, Levante David, Devontae Bond, and Kendall Beckwith are locks to make the team. And then your 5th and 6th spot is a 3-way battle between Adarius Glanton, who I think has played really well.
Yes.
Cameron Lynch and Riley Bula, obviously. But, I mean, the way it's looking, I think Bula's not going to make it just because of his ability in pass coverage is kind of suspect. That showed last game. Unfortunately, I would like to say he would be on the practice squad, but like we've discussed, Gene, I think he'll get picked up by someone else if he is let go.
Absolutely.
Just because of the Hard Knocks exposure.
Yeah, most definitely. I just don't see him. I just don't see him sticking around. But there are a lot of other teams in the NFL that are really hurting for that linebacker position. I know he's going to land somewhere. He won't be on the market long.
Right.
I love his intensity. And I'm one of those people. I love the underdog, and just you didn't know a whole lot about him going into camp, but thanks to Hard Knocks, we learned we learned a lot about him. I have so much respect for this guy and all the hard work he put in. And, you know, it's hard to compete with the Beckwiths and the Levante Davids and, you know, the Quan Alexanders. You know, you can't really compete with these guys because these guys are you know, really solid linebackers. So I think that's a good thing for us. And not to jump the gun too much, but the two positions that I could think of were wide receiver and linebacker, where anybody that gets cut has a really good chance of making it onto another team. So, you know, with the linebacker position, a lot of these guys are going to end up on other teams. And, you know, with Kendall Beckwith, I do want to say this. This guy he's proving that he deserves to be on this team. And that right there, you know, I'm the first one to say that I'm glad that I was wrong. And, you know, I hope he continues to improve and, you know, put his name out there where everybody can recognize, you know, what he's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he had some mistakes in the last game, but he also made some nice plays. I mean, he forced that fumble to cause a turnover. So, I mean, that was encouraging. It shows that he is learning from his mistakes. I mean, he did a great job of engaging the blocker, doing the shoulder dip and getting that arm on the ball. So that was impressive. But you know, back to Bulla and Lynch, I think Lynch would edge out Riley just because of his special teams value. I mean, Cameron is very good on special teams. Same thing with Darius Glanton. So that's why I think those two guys have the edge. But yeah, I mean, that'll be an interesting decision because it depends on tomorrow. If for some reason you get an injury at another spot, I mean, maybe they do keep 6 linebackers just because of special teams. But you know, with that being said, let's move into the defensive line, where I think this is the most intriguing spot because this is where I think the Buccaneers could add a guy over the weekend from the outside. I think there's going to be some players available that get cut. Maybe marquee names. I don't know. I'm not sure on that, but I think there's going to be some guys that could be upgrades over the people we have right now.
Now let me, and it's interesting you say that right there. When you talk about upgrades, you've got your GM hat on. You know, your GM Michael Pless tonight. Who, as you're looking at this line, who on this line they need to step up their game, or they're going to be out? Give me a couple of names that you're seeing.
Well, I mean, at defensive tackle, I think it's pretty much set. You have Jerry McCoy, you have Chris Baker, Clint McDonald are going to be there. They're your 3 locks at D tackle. But I think the battle is going to be Siliga versus Stevie T. I think Stevie T is in more danger of being let go. I think he's got to have a big game tomorrow. He's going to get more playing time, probably the most he's gotten so far this preseason. So it's very critical for him to step up and show what he has. Now, with that being said, if he does get cut, I think he has a good chance of making it to the practice squad just due to his age. He's already 26. So I think he's got, I mean, but it's big. I mean, that's a big battle right there, him and Siliga, see what they have. As defensive
100%. I had heard, and see, I don't know how true it is, but I had heard he was injured at some point. Yeah, Stevie T.
He might have a slight injury. I know he was held out of practice. I think it was last week or something along those lines. So I'm not sure on that. But, I mean, hopefully he can overcome it and have a good game tomorrow. But, I mean, moving forward to the defensive end position, that's where the intrigue is. Obviously, you have Robert Ayers, William Golston, Noah Spence making the team. Jack Smith, they're going to keep him just because of his pass rushing ability. Now, again, I'm not sure if he's going to start the season on the PUP list and he's going to miss the first 6 games. I'm not sure on that. They said he started running last week, so maybe he's closer than expected. But it gets intriguing once you get into the George Johnson, the Ryan Russells. Devontae Lambert hurt his wrist, so he might be out. They just added some new guys just to have depth for tomorrow's game. I don't know much about them. I'm not too high on them.
Let me ask you this. And you mentioned somebody who I've really been intrigued with because
Mhm.
we haven't heard his name mentioned is George Johnson.
Yeah.
Throughout camp, what's your assessment of George Johnson? Has he done enough to make this team?
I mean, George, he's very, very up and down, very inconsistent. I mean, at times he'll show you some flashes and then it goes away. I don't know. I mean, his effort is just not very consistent for some reason. It seems like on plays he just stops and then, at other times he's full go. So
Mhm.
I, it's hard to read him. And then again, you also have the injury prone with him. I mean, it
Yeah.
seems like he's always getting some type of little injuries here and there. So, um, yeah, I mean, that's going to be the battle. I mean, Ryan Russell needs to step up his game as well. He hasn't
Yeah,
really shown
definitely.
much in the preseason, so it'll be a big game for him. But like I was saying, I mean, this is a spot where I think the team, if they see a defensive end, especially, I've kept my eye on the Minnesota Vikings. They have a lot of defensive ends that are very good. Um, I have a source that I talk with that is a big Vikings fan, so he's been telling me about their defensive ends. They have a guy from the seventh round that's been tearing it up. They got a couple guys there, so they might not be able to keep them all. So that might be a team that we might look at and say, hey, here's a defensive end that we can pick up that might be a potential upgrade. Um, then across the league, I mean, there's other guys that are going to be available just because you're going to have so many players let go this weekend. So it wouldn't surprise me. Like I said all offseason, the roster is fluid at all times. And the final 53 is not really final until you get till September 10th. I mean, once you hit September 10th, then your roster is finally final because that's the roster you're going into with the season, to start the season. So, um, yeah, I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see what those guys do. As far as the other guys on the defensive ends, I mean, Tavares Barnes and those guys, I don't think they have much of an opportunity. I think they're going to be let go, and hopefully find somewhere else where they can either be developed on the practice squad or with another team.
Yeah. And it's going to be important to see that pass rush. I mean, that's going to be huge for the defense going
Mhm.
throughout the season. When you face Cam
Yeah.
Newton, when you face Matt Ryan, when you face Drew Brees, you have to be able to get pressure on the
Hmm.
quarterback. Uh, this
Yeah.
is this is preseason, so I haven't really
Hmm.
nitpicked too much on this, but I know it's something because we haven't seen the schemes. We've only seen the vanilla
Right.
defenses, so. Um, can't read a lot into it right now, but
Hmm.
it is something that I do have my eye on is how are these guys going to how are they going to do getting pressure on the quarterback? And
Right.
I really hope that it's one of those things where they are overwhelming the quarterback and giving some relief to the secondary and the linebackers as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, Roy Cummings brought up a good point today. I mean, he talked about how Noah Spence is probably the most important player on this defense. I mean, they're putting so
Jesus, that
much.
kid's so fast.
Yeah, I mean, they're putting a lot of hopes on him to be very good this year. And if he can live up to expectations, I mean, this defense has the potential to be very good. So I think, and I think in preseason he hasn't really shown much as far as what else he can do. As far as Noah Spence is concerned, I think he's kind of holding back a little bit. Um, and they're not really, again, like you said, it's preseason. They're not really scheming their rushes as far as their games, text games, and stuff like that. Um, so I mean, but like I said, you would like to have another defensive end that can take the pressure off of a Noah Spence or Jack Smith or Robert Ayers, just to have someone just in case. It's just always good to build that depth. And if you can have another guy that can rotate in, that would be very beneficial. Not saying Ryan Russell can't do that. I mean, he showed some flashes last year, but I think if they can upgrade there, they will.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
going to
that's
be
what Jason Light.
and Jason Light has done a great job. Again, to turn
Mhm.
over a team like he's done with his free agency and with the draft picks, I think he's done an awesome job, and I'm really looking forward to what this defense is going to look like. And again, we have guys that have been in this defense for a year. They know what's going on. They'll be able to go in once they start scheming. They'll be able to play to their strengths. And again, we've talked about it, early on. I thought that the Mike Smith move was a huge acquisition to get him re-signed. I think is going to help the defense 100%, considering all the inconsistencies that we've seen in the past. So again, I can't read a whole lot into what we're seeing right now, but I do believe that this defense is getting primed and ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, it's preseason. I think they're holding certain guys back. It's definitely Chris Baker. You haven't seen what he can do yet. I think the same thing. Yeah, he can dance. Yeah, he's a star on Hard Knocks. And they're always joking with him like about his practice reps and stuff like that. So I mean, I think that's the plan. They're holding him back, making sure he's ready to go for the season once it gets here. And I think him and McCoy, you're really going to see what they're going to be able to do, because Chris Baker is actually a pretty good pass rusher. He can get after the quarterback and disrupt things and take on double teams so McCoy can get more single matchups. And it just shows you how important Gerald McCoy is, because he runs it all. I mean, he's the engine that makes it. Yeah, everything goes through Gerald McCoy.
Exactly.
So it's important for him to hopefully he can stay healthy for all 16 games, knock on wood, because he is the key to the pass rush. I mean, he's going to make it easier for the ends. And but I mean, Noah Spence, I mean, that's the guy this year. He's got to take it to the next level.
Bro, I'm here to tell you, I've never seen anybody get off the ball like he does. I realize what Gerald McCoy does, but just watching this kid get off the ball and get around to the quarterback, putting pressure on him, you know what? They have to account for him this season. He's not injured. He can go in there and he can create some havoc. And defenses are going to have to game plan for him, and that's what you want. Because I think that's going to be huge, and whoever they have on the other side of the ball is going to be huge as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you notice, I mean, last game they were double teaming Noah Spence because
they had to.
Gerald McCoy wasn't in there, so they were double teaming Noah Spence, which is that's exciting to see because they know he's there. I mean, at times they were triple teaming him with a tight end and a running back, so. That's good. That's what we want, because it's going to allow McCoy to be more effective. And it's also, I mean, they're going to work off each other, which is going to be exciting. And don't forget about Robert Ayers as well. I think as long as he's healthy too, he can be a presence off the outside as well.
What's really scary is he's the forgotten man, because we're talking about everybody else. And that's exciting to me. When somebody like with the caliber of a Robert Ayers is the forgotten guy, and you're talking about everybody else on the line, that really that's kind of exciting. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And the same could be said for Jack Smith. And now again, the key for him is getting healthy, and hopefully the Bucs don't rush him back. I would like to see them take their time with him and make sure he's 100%, because I think we're going to need him, especially towards the second half of the season, because that's when our schedule gets very tough. So, him and even William Golson. I don't think William Golson gets talked about a lot either, just because of his run presence, his ability to make tackles behind the line of scrimmage. But I think his pass rushing ability has come on, and I think it's gonna be better this season. He's a guy I think that can get you at least 5 sacks, but also push that pocket and make other guys better. So it's all about working together, and I think they have the right pieces in place. But like I said earlier, I would not be surprised if Jason Light goes out and gets another guy to add to that mix from another team.
Absolutely. What's really interesting to me is where Tampa is with the salary cap. And I look at the players, especially on defense, the players that they have. And, I think, again, as I mentioned earlier, I thought that Jason Light has done a great job with this team. And, where considering where they are. And, just some of the points that we've touched on really shows just how he's flipped this the team basically getting all these
Roster.
different the roster. Excuse me, there you just getting the roster flipped to where it's a positive.
You're right.
I'm super excited about that,
Mhm.
because we haven't been able to talk about stuff like this. So
Right.
when you're talking about competition, that means that you have two guys that are as good that are competing for a position. You don't have
Mhm.
one guy who's good and the other guy who's like, yeah, it's whatever. And then you have to pretty much hand the keys to this other guy, a la EJ Biggers or some players like that. I think that Tampa is in a really good position. Now, I do want to
Mhm.
ask you, who is your
Mhm.
standout on who is your standout basically on defense throughout camp?
It has to be Levante David. I mean, Levante, I think, has been the most consistent player. Yeah, I know. Don't speak too loud. Um, yeah, I mean, there's still critics on Levante David, which is shocking to me.
Unbelievable, man. These
But
people are jumping out the window like he had a horrible season last year.
I know. But yeah, he has been the best player on defense, in my opinion. Most consistent day in and day out. Um, So I think him and maybe a close second, Gerald McCoy. I mean, Gerald McCoy has been outstanding. Um, but yeah, Levante has really stepped up his game. But I mean, not only I mean his game is already at a high level, but it just seems like he's taken it up to the next notch, and really becoming not only a great player, which he is, but just a better leader overall. You can see him communicating more, very more vocal, and guys listen to him. So that's very important. And you can see Quan Alexander and him are very close, which is good. And Quan's kind of following in those footsteps.
Yeah. For me, it's going to be Vernon Hargraves. He's way more aggressive now. Uh,
Right.
he's jumping routes. Last year, I think it was a matter of him um, figuring out what his role is and how to
Mhm.
be comfortable in his role. And what I'm seeing from him now is an aggressive Vernon
Mhm.
Hargraves, and I think he's going to get quite a few picks this year just
Right.
because he's aggressive and he's going
Yeah.
after it. And the thing that I really love about this kid, he reminds me of Brent Grimes in that he has a short memory. If he gets
Mhm.
burned on a play, he's going to come back and make a play to make up
Right.
for it, and then make another play to make up for it
Yeah.
again. So I'm really happy with where we are, or
Mhm.
where Tampa is as a team, because you bring in a Brent Grimes who can mentor a Vernon Hargraves and help him to get to that next level. And
Mhm.
I know a lot of people said that Vernon Hargraves was a bad pick. There was even an article about redrafting, and they had Vernon Hargraves dropping down to number 19. But
Mhm.
I can't go with that. I think that
Yeah.
this is his second season. We haven't even seen his third season, and I do
Mhm.
believe that that was the ideal pick, was to get Vernon Hargraves over like a Eli Apple, for instance.
Yeah, I still can't believe the Giants did that. But um, what was it? Yeah, and the funny thing is, the same thing is happening with Ryan Smith this year. He's kind of going through what Vernon Hargraves did last year, as far as just a little bit tentative. You see him hesitating a little bit as far as Ryan Smith is concerned, but he's still very aggressive in the run defense. He's got that down pat, not allowing anything get by him, which is impressive as far as the deep ball goes. So that is good, but he is allowing the 10-yard completions, but at times, I mean, he's showing that he can jump routes. I mean, he did it last week against the Browns. Almost had an interception on a nice jump route where he dove and almost came down with it. So I think those two guys are kind of in the similar trajectory. But I mean, Vernon is just taking it to a next level this season. I expect him to have a big year, and I think you could see Ryan Smith take that step next offseason, where those two guys could be potentially your starters going forward.
Most definitely.
Mm.
That was a position that a lot of people were wanting Jason Light to draft, was the cornerback
Mm.
position. I will say this, folks.
Mm.
After this year, I really believe that people should just put their faith in Jason Light and what he's doing. I
Mm.
know it's important, if you're season ticket holders, fans that go to games or whatever, you want to question certain things.
Mm.
But to be very honest, I think Jason Light has done more good than he has bad. And yeah, he's missed on some picks, but nobody's ever going to be perfect getting picks. And I feel like he's got his pulse on this. He's got the pulse of this team, and working with the working hand in hand with the head coach, which we've seen that on Hard Knocks. I love that fact that they work together. They're not working against each other. There aren't any egos in the room. They're working to build this team up. So I don't know what else to say about it. I think that, you know, what he does in the offseason, you kind of have to sit back and watch what happens to see how it all works out.
Yeah, and Jason Light is, you know, he is a risk taker. He's aggressive when he has to be. He took chances in previous drafts, and sometimes you have to do that to get the guys that you want. And he is very confident in his abilities to, you know, evaluate talent. But also, if he wants a guy, he's going to make sure he goes after it and gets it. So that takes you know, risk taking, and sometimes that doesn't work out. I mean, Aguayo didn't work out, ASJ didn't work out, but that happens. And you know, most of the time, you know, a draft pick doesn't work. It's because of the mental side of the game. I mean, it doesn't work from the neck up, and if you don't have it, then you know, most likely you're not going to succeed in the NFL. And part though, he's gotten those picks right. I mean, he's nailed his first round picks. I would say he's got those right in Mike Evans, Jameis Winston, Vernon Hargreaves, and OJ Howard. I mean, that's good quality right there. So I think Light is doing a fabulous job. And the best thing about him, he owns to his mistakes. I mean, if he makes a mistake, he fixes it right away. I mean, he cut ASJ, cut Aguayo, saw that they weren't working. He moves on from his mistakes, which some GMs just don't do. So like you said, putting your ego aside is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. So any final thoughts? You know, we were talking about the defense. I just want to make sure we haven't really missed anything. Again, I'm happy with where things are right now, but if they do decide they make improvements, you have to remember Jason Light and Dirk Cutter. That's what they do. They watch film. They figure out where they can improve because they're basically doing this for their jobs. I mean, we do this for fun. Me and you, we get on here because we love talking football, and you know, we do this for the fan base. So, you know, what we do is different than what they do. They're doing it because this is their livelihood. And I have to tell you, they've done a great job with it. I mean, somebody mentioned in the chat, and I'll get to the chats here towards the end of the show, but they said that this is probably the best GM since John McKay, or I'm sorry, Rich McKay, excuse me.
Yeah, right.
But you know what? I can't argue that because I look at what a dumpster fire we've had between Rich McKay and Jason Light, and I can't argue that point.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, Jason Light has established a stability which we haven't had in forever. I mean, finally this franchise has some stability, and it's a consistent plan, and Jason Light is very consistent in what he does. I mean, he's not going to change as far as his approach. The same thing goes for Dirk Cutter. I mean, those two guys are very on the same page, and they communicate daily. As we've seen in Hard Knocks, I mean, they're always having conversations about players or what they think of this guy or what they think of the other guy, making sure this team and this franchise is on the right path to going forward and getting to where we need to go, and that's winning the Super Bowl. So they are always keeping what's best for the organization in mind and not putting their own personal egos in front of that. And it's very refreshing to see, you know, executing their plan.
Yeah, most definitely. I just, you know, it's very exciting. And one more thing I do want to mention, you know, I think that Chris Conte is really coming into his own, and I think he's going to have a very good season. Quietly, he's going to have a really good season this year. He made some plays, some game-changing plays towards the end of the season last year. And I think that he's getting adjusted to this defense, just like everybody else. And I think he's going to be he's going to pick it up, and he will definitely be a big player towards the end of the season. So do we want to jump over to offense?
Yeah, let's move into the offense. I think we'll start it with the quarterback position and then move our way down to the offensive line.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, with quarterback, I think with the news of them extending Ryan Griffin for one more year, I think what's going to happen is they're going to keep two quarterbacks. I think they're going to move Ryan Griffin to IR for the season and have Ryan Fitzpatrick as the backup. So I think that's pretty much set. And then it gets interesting once we get into that running back position. I mean, that's been the talk of the whole offseason. Now, let's just say this and let's get this out of the way. Doug Martin is not going anywhere, folks. He is staying for the whole season. Once he serves that 3-game suspension, he's going to come back and probably be the starter because the guy is the best running back on this team, and it's not even close. I mean, it's by a far mile. The guy knows he made a mistake. This is his last opportunity. This is his last chance to make something happen in this league, and I think he's going to do it. And you can see that there's a chip on his shoulder. He's got that urgency when he runs the football. So I think that is non-issue. He's going to be on this team. Now, as far as the other guys, I think Charles Sims and same thing goes with Jacquizz Rodgers. Those guys are going to be probably your main two going into that first 3 weeks before Doug Martin gets back. And I think those guys are going to rotate in and out. Mainly Charles Sims used as the third down back, with Jacquizz, being your featured back as far as the first and second down. So I think that's going to be those two guys are pretty much on the team as well. They're locks. And same thing goes with Peyton Barber. I think Peyton Barber has made a lot of strides from last year. I think he could be used as a short yardage down back, a power back, kind of used, in certain situations through those first 3 games.
Would he be considered more like a change of pace back?
Yeah, exactly. I think him and Charles Sims are going to be kind of used in that role for the first 3 weeks. And I think you'll see all 3 of them play during those, first couple of games. Now, it gets interesting with McNichols. Now, I think McNichols makes the team. I know a lot of people have been saying, oh, he's going to get cut because he's, not knowing the playbook or missing assignments and stuff like that. But most rookies struggle with that, and it's not easy with a running back. I mean, you got it's a different speed and it's a different pace. Plus, you're going with different offensive linemen that you haven't really worked with. So I think he'll make the team just because of his upside. I think he still has a lot of upside in his abilities. So I think they'll carry 4. Now, when Doug Martin gets back, that's where it gets interesting. I don't know what they'll do, if they keep 5 running backs or they let one of them go. Obviously, McNichols might be the odd man out if they decide to let one go. So, but I think for now, they're going to keep 4. I don't know. What do you think, Gene? You think they're going to cut McNichols?
No, I think they're going to keep him. Again, he's a rookie. And just the fact that he didn't get a lot of reps during camp with that injury, and he's just coming in, I think that would be kind of foolish to let him go. Another guy that I think would be foolish to let go is Charles Sims. Charles Sims has breakaway speed. He's a guy that every time he touches the ball in the flat or in the open field, he has a chance to get big gains. And I've listened to other NFC South podcasts, and I've heard the same thing of how much of a headache Charles Sims can be when he gets loose. So I don't buy into, he's not doing enough to make the team. I feel like this is a guy that will be a big benefit for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And as far as Doug Martin goes, you heard me say this in the offseason when everybody was talking about Dalvin Cook. I said, do not be surprised if Doug Martin is a Tampa Bay Buccaneer when the season starts. And, I've always stood by that, because what you're looking at is a guy that was the 2nd leading rusher in the NFL in 2015. And yeah, he fell off the next season, but I think that with his mind and going into rehab and getting himself situated and coming back physically and mentally capable, I expect big things from Doug Martin. And remember, folks, and I hate to keep harping on this, but the Bucs do not get a bye until week 11. That's a lot of football. That's a lot of getting beat up and stuff like that. So it may benefit the Tampa Bay Buccaneers by Doug Martin having those 3 games off and coming back 100% healthy. If we look back to last season, everybody, all these players, with the exception of McNichols, had a chance to take that spot. They had a chance to be that guy. And whether it was injury or lack of production, nobody was really able to supplant Doug Martin as the starting running back or even put themselves in the conversation as, hey, I'm that guy. And we still have to come back and look at Doug Martin. So, again, Doug Martin is going to be that guy. I think mentally and physically, this guy, he has a lot to prove. And I think he's going to go out and do this. And I love Hard Knocks. I mean, you know me, over the past couple of years when it's been rumored that Tampa would be on Hard Knocks, I was like, no, it's a distraction. I'm glad that Tampa got it. I'm glad they were able to humanize Doug Martin, because Doug Martin is a human just like all of us. We've all made mistakes. And the fact that he's getting a second chance, I'm really hoping and praying that he makes the most of his opportunity, and I think he will.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, I mean, 2015 second leading rusher in the NFL. The guy has ability, and imagine, I mean, that's with a mindset that probably wasn't right during that time. I mean, if he had to get into rehab, I mean, and now he is seeing things more clearly and understanding what he has to do. I mean, that should make him even better than he was in previous years, which is very exciting. It just seems like everything, he is more in control of himself, if that makes sense. It just seems like everything is slowing down for him, and he's understanding, hey, this is my time and I have to make the most out of this, because if I don't, then I'm probably not going to see another team, on the open market, and I won't be with the Buccaneers. So, he knows this is it. I got to make it happen, and I think he is going to, because, we'll get to the offense line in a little bit, but I think the running backs are pretty well set. I think it's actually one of the stronger groups we have on this team.
Yeah, and Peyton Barber, another guy that we haven't really touched on. I love what Peyton Barber has done in the preseason. Just watching him make the most of his opportunities. He's been punishing the defensive lines when he runs through. I mean, when you tackle him, you've been in a fight, and then you have to go back and turn around and do it again. This kid is he's making the most of his opportunities, as we talk about. And this is a skill position that the players are making the most of their opportunities. With the exception of McNichols, I believe that McNichols just needs time. And, I believe that, 1 to 2 years will tell you a little bit, but the third year is where you know what you truly have in a draft pick. I realize that we live in a microwave society, and sometimes we can't do that, but I would really love to see what he can do with a year of the playbook under his belt, with the year of coaching under his belt in the NFL, and just see how he could come out and be productive, because I believe he has some nice hands. I have to admit. I mean, just looking at how he catches the ball and how he puts the ball, how he brings it in, I think that he would really benefit. Tampa would really benefit from him as a running back.
Yeah, no, I agree there. And like I said, I think he just needs time. He needs time to adjust to this league and, get more comfortable. I think he's a little bit thinking too much, and that's normal for a rookie. And I think as time progresses, I think as time progresses, I think he'll be fine. With that being said, I think we'll move into, let's go instead of receivers, I think let's talk with the tight ends, because I think that is going to be very intriguing. I actually think they could keep 5. I think they're going to keep 5 again this year.
Really?
Yeah, I think they're going to keep 5. And I think obviously we're going to keep Pro Bowler. We're going to have OJ Howard. Luke Stalker, I think, is going to make it just because of his ability to block, and he's just a veteran, and the team needs him.
He's had a good preseason as well.
Yeah, he's been very solid. So I think that's 3 right there. And then I think the real battle is who they're going to keep between Austin Johnson and Alan Cross. Now, Alan Cross, I think, has been overall very consistent. I think he's been a little bit better. So I probably lean towards Alan Cross, just because his familiarity with the team. He's on the team last year, made some plays last year. So I think Alan Cross is going to make it, and I think they're going to keep the Eau Claire kid. I don't think they want to let him go. That's why
I
I think,
would,
yeah.
I've been really impressed with him. But Cross, it was interesting. I was talking with I was talking with somebody on Twitter today, and they had mentioned that Cross would be their surprise to make the team. So I'm looking forward to that. But Claire, it's very rare to see a Canadian football player make it, and just to see what he's done, I'm excited. Again,
Yeah.
I think that this playbook is offense friendly. I guess is the best way to say it. I don't know if you remember back to John Gruden's playbook, which looked like two phone books in a concrete block, and who knows, a stepping stone or something like that is just so big. You got to learn all this stuff. But here we have a guy that's he's simplified this offense, but he's still at the same time there are nuances to it to where they can you keep a defensive coordinator guessing. So I'm super excited about this season with the complement of weapons that you see. I'm super excited about it. So I'm with you. I think I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait until like after this last game with the Washington to see possibly who steps up and who stands out in that tight end position.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think they want to lose like Claire, because I mean, I think if they release him, he's probably going to get picked up, and I think they're feeling, hey, this is our guy. We found this guy. We got him in an undrafted free agency, and I think they want to hold on to him and kind of use him as a guy they can develop, and he could really become something once he learns the aspects of this game and really becomes comfortable with it, coming over from Canada. So just getting more experience and learning blocking concepts and learning how to become better as a route runner, and his receiving. The guy has really good hands. I mean, he just needs to work on little things as far as his route runnings and knowing where to be as far as yardage. But I think they're going to keep 5, and I think Alan Cross makes it just because of his ability on special teams. He is probably one of our leaders on special teams, and his ability to be utilized as a fullback as well gives him that versatility. So, I think they'll go with 5 again. So, I mean, it's going to be exciting. I mean, and we really haven't seen what OJ Howard can do. I think, like I said on Twitter, they've been holding him back. I think you're really going to see what his receiving ability is going to be about once we get into Miami. I think they're really going to unleash him and use him in the slot and really take advantage of those mismatches that they can create.
It's interesting. We talked about the 2 tight end set. Remember, right after the draft, and everybody was talking about Cameron Brate is going to be gone. You can put that out of your head. Cameron Brate is going to get as many reps, not as many reps as OJ Howard, if not more. There's a very good level of comfort between Cameron Brate and Jameis Winston. And Jameis Winston has been able to utilize Cameron Brate when he's scrambling in the pocket or when there's nobody else that he can get the ball out to. So again, he's one of those guys that I feel like he's going to help this team huge. It's going to be very important to keep him on the field as much as possible. I like his hands. I like the fact that he gets open and
Mhm.
and as you mentioned the word mismatch, that
Mhm.
is going to be the word of the day. Whenever a defensive coordinator says, "Oh, we got Tampa next week," you have to look at these different
Mhm.
mismatches.
Mhm.
The tight ends. I can't think of any defenses right off the bat that we're facing that match up with the tight ends that we have
Mhm.
here in Tampa. Um,
Right.
and then you look at the wide receiver situation, and
Mhm.
then you have J.R. Sweezy is incredible. I mean,
Mhm.
just what I've gotten to see from him
Mhm.
in this short period of time, he's incredible. It was worth the wait to me, and maybe I'm
Mhm.
wrong. It was worth the wait for that whole year to see him play the way he's playing right now. If he
Yeah.
keeps this up, I mean, he's gonna put fear in a lot of people.
Yeah, we'll get in, let's break down the offensive line and then we'll get into the receivers. Um, yeah, I think the offensive line is pretty much set as well. I think your starting five is pretty much solid. You got Donovan Smith, Kevin Panfield, Ali Marpet, J.R. Sweezy, like you mentioned, and DeMar Dotson. And then your key backups, I think, are going to be Evan Smith, Joe Hawley, who I think will make the team, and then Caleb Benenoch. And then the ninth spot gets a little tricky. I think that's where the Bucs could look to outside help again. I think they could
Right.
go out and get a tackle, a guy that maybe could play tackle or guard, or maybe center slash guard. But most likely it'd probably be a guard tackle if they're going to upgrade. I'm just not sold on Wester. I mean, I like what he does
He's
as
kind of
far as
inconsistent though.
yeah, he's just up and down, and that's expected. He is a second-year player, undrafted. Um, so I thought it was good that he got a lot of snaps against Cleveland, which was good. But he had some mistakes in there too. Um, but I don't know. I think that's a spot. If someone gets dropped, that could be a potential upgrade. I think you could see them add that ninth guy in free agency. Um, but I think they'll keep nine. I don't see him going 10 as far as linemen. Um, again, now if someone gets hurt tomorrow night, I mean, then it is a possibility they add to that more than nine and go 10. But they only dress seven on game day, so
Right.
I think nine is logical. But that position's pretty much set.
Yeah, most definitely.
Hmm.
And there's another position that you heard a lot of the fan base talking about. The Bucks need to draft. They need to go into the
Hmm.
draft and get players out. And again, you have a general manager and a head coach that are working together. They
Hmm.
can look at the talent that they have, and they can decide, whether or not this is going to work for them. Caleb Benenoch is a guy that has kind of caught my attention. He was a late
Hmm.
round pick, just like a Kevin Pamphil, a late
Hmm.
round pick. These are players that all 32 teams in the NFL have passed over multiple times, and the Tampa
Hmm.
Bay Buccaneers were able to pull the trigger, bring these people in, and get production out of them. So that's something again, I can't stress that enough how important that is. I mean, you have to understand, as Bucks fans, you can go back Mark Dominic, Bruce Allen, and you think about all the failed picks they had from the first to the seventh round, all the
Hmm.
failed picks they had. And when you have a general manager who can come in and he can grab a late round pick like a Kevin Pamphil or
Hmm.
a Caleb Benenoch or a Ryan Smith, just different players that they can grab and bring in and get productivity out of them. That
Hmm.
to me is very important, and I think it's something that we'll continue to see in the future.
Yeah, it's a big year for Kevin Panfield. He enters a contract year. Um, this is his fourth year. So you like to see him be a little bit more consistent. I thought last year he was decent overall. At times he was probably one of our better linemen, but I would just like to see him become a little bit more consistent and really take that next step as a guard, and hopefully he can do that. I think having Ali Marpet next to him is going to help, and Donovan Smith. So hopefully those guys can take that next step. Him and Donovan especially. I like Donovan Smith. I know a lot of people give him crap, but I think he's good enough when he's on. He can be one of the best left tackles in this game. So hopefully he can just find that consistency. And I'm excited. I'm excited about this offensive line. I think they have the potential to be really good if they can stay healthy and mesh and create that cohesiveness. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens as far as Benenard too. I hope Benenard gets some playing time tomorrow, and hopefully we can see him show what he's got as far as right tackle. And I like him more as a guard. I think he's more of a better guard to me, but they think he's got future at right tackle. So that'll be interesting to see what he can do tomorrow.
Yeah. So, any surprises? Anybody so far that we've talked about that you see that could potentially be off this team? Because ever since I heard about Joe Hayden this morning, I've just been kind of going through my head. Are there any players on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that we as fans see on a regular basis that could be on the bubble? And I think where Tampa is right now, I just don't see anybody that's like put themselves in, starters or second string that have really put themselves in a position to lose that position.
Yeah, I don't see any surprise cuts, and that's actually a good thing. I think that's a good thing going forward. I don't think you're going to see any surprises. I think it's mainly going to be really there's only like 4 or 5 spots that are really open for to be grabbed. And I think that's where you'll get your cuts mainly. It'll be mainly from that pretty much second to third team tier. So no, I don't see any surprises. I think mainly the surprise is going to come from the next position, which is the wide receiver. I think that's going to be the surprise. Looking at the receivers, I mean, you have Mike Evans, Deshaun Jackson, Adam Humphries, Chris Godwin. I mean, that is loaded right there. That's some skill. And then after that, I mean, I don't know who's going to be the 5th guy. And I think they only keep 5. I don't think they're going to keep 6. I think it's up between.
It's really interesting you say that. This reminds me somewhat of last season. When you get past your starters and people that you're sure about, nobody else is distancing themselves from everybody else. Reedy will have a bunch of good plays, and then he might, something catastrophic happens, and then he's, brought back down to where everybody else is. Die has been kind of hit and miss. He hasn't been consistent in the camp, and I know a lot of people like him, but that's the whole thing. And that was my argument last year, is these guys have an opportunity to be that guy. And unfortunately, they're not distancing themselves from everybody else, because you want to be that guy that everybody says, okay, I mention your name and then everybody else. But what you're seeing is a lot of these people that have under Godwin, you're kind of mentioning them all in the same breath, so to speak. So it's just not the same. Godwin, you know what you had. I mean, you knew what you had when Dirk Cutter was talking about it in OTAs. He said this kid comes prepared, and I'd never heard him really talk about anybody on that level. And then just as time progressed, you kind of saw what you had with Godwin, but you knew he was a draft pick. He hadn't played any snaps in the NFL. So to have a player like that, I mean, that's really exciting. He distanced himself from everybody else. Now, when we get down to, everybody underneath him, I'm not sure. Like you, I couldn't tell you who's going to be that guy. And again, like you mentioned earlier, with all these cuts coming up this weekend, who knows? We could get another wide receiver that would pretty much trump everybody that we've got.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility, I think. And I think with the fifth fifth spot, you want someone that can do special teams as well. I think that's going to be very critical. Someone that can return the ball and also play offense. So I think that's why I kind of tend towards a Josh Huff or a Bernard Reedy. But the thing with those two guys, like you said, they're just not very consistent. It seems like they're, up one game and then down the next, or they're injured. Same thing with Dante Dye. He's just had some bad luck too.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just been injury prone and then inconsistent with the hands. So
I like Josh Huff when he was with the Eagles.
Yeah. I mean, he had that one good year. I think he caught what was like 50 balls that one year. So, I'm hoping he can turn it around because he has the upside. He's got the speed. He's got the size. He's got everything you look for as far as a receiver. It's just overall consistency with him.
Yeah.
And if he can put it together tomorrow, I would like to see him get that spot. Like you said, I think they could definitely go out and get someone from the outside. So it's going to be interesting, but I think it's going to come down to ultimately special teams. I think whoever can make the most impact there.
Yeah.
Is going to be the
all
winner.
These guys really, they really need to focus on not making mistakes.
Right.
Costly mistakes are going to kill them. And we really don't, you don't want to see that. I'm rooting for everybody. I'd love to see everybody make the team, but unfortunately, that's not the case. So,
right.
There's that. Because this is a fan show, I want to make sure that I'm hitting up the live chat. So,
one more thing before.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Chris Godwin's girlfriend because she is impressive. Chris Godwin's girlfriend is very impressive. Like as far as lifting weights and outlifting Chris Godwin, that is impressive.
All right. So this is a time, and I want to, Jamie, a friend of mine, she's a longtime Bucs fan, huge Bucs fan in Georgia. She ended up in intensive care this morning, and I want to give a shout out to Jamie, Lady Red, and thinking about you, and I hope for a speedy recovery. But I want to go through some of the chat because this is what pretty much drives the viewers, is what drives this podcast, and it makes me want to keep doing it. So I want to make sure that I'm at least getting some of these done here. And somebody had mentioned your shirt, your jersey that you're wearing, Derek Brooks.
Yeah.
Number 55, greatest of all times. Yeah, I love Derek Brooks.
Yeah.
Huge fan. We're talking about Bobo Wilson, Bobo Wilson didn't do himself any favors on Hard Knocks. So we'll kind of have to see what happens with him. I don't even know if he would make the practice squad. So we'll have to see. And let's see. I'm going to go down here. Pewtercast, thank you so much. I wanted to give you a public shout out. Pewtercast, I love the podcast. Another show with great content, and it's just not sports talk radio anymore. Everything's evolving, and I think podcasts are the way of the future. And I think it's important to involve the fans because everything revolves around the fans or listeners. So just being able to reach out to different outlets. I love Pewtercast, and I recommend it to anybody that's checking us out. Be sure to check out Pewtercast. They're on a lot of different platforms, and that's kind of where I am. We're shooting on. We as a team here, we're trying to shoot for that as well. But let's see. Linebacker is stacked. We're good. I think Lynch wins the battle. Just kind of going back a little ways. And then Pewtercast, beginning of the preseason, I felt linebacker was one of our weakest positions. Now it feels the most stout. Absolutely. I feel like anybody that gets cut has a really good opportunity to get picked up by another team. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
No, I would agree. I think even like some of the other guys like Jeff Knox and thinking of the other guy, Richie Brown, even those guys have opportunities to make other teams. I thought really the linebacker core hasn't really had, bad games as far as a whole goes. I think a lot of them have played well. So yeah, I think there's definitely opportunities for a lot of those guys. And Cameron Lynch has been on other teams. He played for the Rams last year, so I think all those guys have opportunities.
Yeah. And then B. Loggins was saying he
Mhm.
felt like Beckwith has had the best camp out of any of the rookies. How do you feel
Yeah,
about that?
I would definitely agree. I mean, I would put him definitely up there with Chris Godwin. I think Beckwith has really come on strong. I've been very impressed with him. He had a shaky first game in Cincinnati, but from since then he has really bounced back and looked very impressive. Um, still has room to grow and still has plenty to learn, but very impressive from where he's come from, coming off an ACL injury. Looks really good.
You know what? I have to jump in here because I was one of the critics about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers drafting him in the first place.
Yeah,
And I'm
same
I'm
here.
I'm openly apologizing about that because what he's done is what players need to do. They go out and hone their craft, they get better, and they get better each
Mhm.
game. And what you've seen from him is sizable improvement since the Cincinnati game. And
Mhm.
I have to say I can't say anything negative about him because a lot of the things that I was critical of, he's improved on. So he knew, the coaching knew, the coaching staff knew, and they've gone out and they've made improvements in a lot of these positions. So I'm happy with where he is, and I'm happy I was wrong, and
Mhm.
I'm glad to say that. So let's see. Let me get down here. Kevin Sloan. I agree. Our second and third D is a little glaring to me. We have some good guys, but we need to get more depth. Basically, talking about the defensive line.
Mhm.
Um, Again, Stevie T was a guy that I really was, was excited about. Just you hear his story and you see all the
Mhm.
hard work he's done, and unfortunately, there are players that have outshined him, and
Mhm.
hopefully he'll continue to improve to get himself a spot, whether it's not on this team, but
Mhm.
possibly on another team.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that.
So let's see here. Steve Whittington. Yeah, I heard McNichols has a fire under his ass. Um, you know, um, he he's young,
Mhm.
and he didn't have a full camp like everybody else did coming off of injury, and I think that kind of put him behind. But I really believe, just based on the raw skills that he has and everything that I've seen, that with coaching and a little bit of time in the NFL, I think he'll be a really good back.
Mhm. Yeah, I think he'll be fine. I mean, like we said earlier, I think it's just patience with him. Just got to get comfortable in this league.
Yeah, so we talked about that. And then we talked about Doug Martin. We just kind of touched on that. Um, let's see. The Pewtercast said we haven't seen much of Spencer Golston in the game so far, even not too much from Ayers.
Mhm.
Can't wait to see him in the season.
Mhm.
Again, this goes back to your point. Is Dirk Cutter holding back
Mhm.
on what we will be seeing as fans, or just as NFL fans, period,
Mhm.
come regular season? Is
Mhm.
that what we're seeing?
I think it is. I mean, you listen to Dirk Cutter throughout this offseason. A lot of, most of the time he's been saying, let's just get healthy to week one. Let's get healthy to Miami. Um, and I think he also is trying to keep these guys more fresh as they go forward because I think um, last season they kind of wore down as the season went on and kind of got tired out, in those last couple of games. So I think they want to keep them more fresh, and obviously the indoor facility is going to help with that. Be able to practice inside. So, um, but yeah, I think he's holding them back a little bit. I think he's going to unleash them once the regular season gets going because you want to be at full go. You want to be healthy. I mean, you look at the players hurt. I mean, I think it's up to 50 players that have been injured so far this preseason. 25 ACL injuries, which is just
That's
that's
crazy.
devastating.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
so um, to be where we are and to have pretty much all our starters healthy and ready to go for week one, I think they're all going to be intact is saying something.
Yeah, knock on wood.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Pewtercast was saying, I doubt Hargraves has a breakout season, but he'll take a big step function as a
Mhm.
second year player.
Mhm.
Um, when you look at in Pewtercast, I will say this: if we go back to 2015, this secondary was atrocious,
It was worse in the league,
atrocious, and
historically bad.
yeah, again, I had to drop EJ Bigger's name. When you got a guy
Myron
like that
Myron
as your,
Lewis.
yeah, Myron Lewis, when you got guys like this that are fighting for starting positions, it says a lot about your team. Now,
Yeah.
I look at the coaching carousel and the fact that last year you had a rookie on one side of the ball to help bring stability to the secondary where they weren't
Mhm.
getting cooked out of their minds throughout the season. I mean,
Mhm.
it says a lot. And I
Yeah.
believe that Vernon Hargraves, where he's at, I think is a lot better than where he was. And I honestly believe that what you're going to see is a vast improvement over last year.
Mhm.
Again, here's a guy that's trying to jump routes. He's
Mhm.
more aggressive than what he was, and I know it's a blessing and a curse. But I think that we're the team will benefit from it.
Mhm. Yeah, and just quickly, I mean, this defense is predicated on turnovers. I mean, it's all about creating turnovers, and I think the main thing is just don't get beat deep and take advantage of your opportunities when you got them. And I think they're going to be aggressive in trying to create more turnovers, especially Vernon Hargraves, and getting more interceptions. He already has two this preseason, and I think he's going to get up towards five this year, maybe more. So that will be the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And a big shout out to the stick carriers. As usual, the phenomenon is incredible. If you guys have not seen the podcast with Justin Pulowski, Old School, and he's going to kill me because I just forgot his name, Keith Larson
Yeah.
from Buckaholics.
Mhm.
Please check that out where they're trying to unite the fan base. I love it.
Mhm.
This fan base has not been united for a long time, and it's time that everybody come together and be that force at Raymond James Stadium. I realize this last game. I guess the fight. From what I heard, the fight had a lot to do with the attendance. I'll take that, but I think that we're going to see a big turnout for that opening day game against the Bears. So
Mhm.
that's something to really be excited about. So shout out to Stick Carriers, Buckaholics, shout out, and anybody else that I'm missing. So I'm almost done here. We've run over. I just want to make sure that some of the interesting points I'm making sure that we get. TB_Bucs fans, I like Austin Johnson, but this team just doesn't keep fullbacks.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's like I said earlier. I think we're going to keep five tight ends, and I think Alan Cross is going to be that guy, just because of his ability to play fullback or tight end. Um, so that's kind of where you get your hybrid. Also, Luke Stalker can play fullback, so you kind of have your fullback built into the tight end position. Same thing with Cameron Brate. We kind of seen it in preseason where Cam Brate was lined up in the backfield. So, um, yeah, I don't disagree with this point, and but I think Alan Cross is going to be that guy.
Yeah. And Steve Whittington, I need to see some serious discipline. I feel like we give too much in penalties on key plays. Um, Penalties have improved from where they were, but one penalty is one
Mm,
penalty too much. So I can't argue that
mm,
just getting penalties at the wrong time in the wrong place can kill a drive,
mm,
and that's what we want to try to make sure that Tampa is avoiding the drive killing penalties as well.
mm, yeah.
Let's see, Quiz Rogers, Pewtercast. Barber is similar in style to Martin and Jaquiz Rogers, but he's younger, bigger, and has more longevity than Quiz. You know what? Long term, Peyton Barber, I expect to see Peyton Barber making a team because I feel like he's a younger player, and Tampa could benefit from him on down the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would
So
agree. I like Peyton Barber. So
yeah, me too.
mm-hmm.
Okay, and oh, you're welcome, Pewtercast. Thanks, Gene. On demand, user created content. Um, and just giving a shout out to Pewtercast. They're on iTunes, Podcast Addict, Stitcher Podbean, Google Play, and iHeartRadio. So they're really doing a lot to expand their brand, and I think that's something that you'll see from Buc What You Heard. We'll start to really get in there to expand what we're doing. You can find the podcast on at realbuckstalk.com is where
Mm-hmm.
we'll find it at. So there's always that. But Michael Pless, we've ran a little bit over, but it always happens when you're talking football.
Yeah.
I appreciate everybody joining in and making comments in the live chat. Justin Batista, sorry I didn't get to respond to your smart aleck comment, but I'll catch up with you later. Michael Pless, I want to kick this off to you before we get out of here. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just follow us at Real Bucs Talk, realbuckstalk.com. A lot of good stuff up there lately. Probably have an article up either later tonight or tomorrow. And just getting ready for the season. Next week we're going to go full in depth on the Miami Dolphins as we break them down and see what kind of matchups we can exploit. But yeah, I just want to say thank you to all the fans. I want to thank you to all the guys that support Real Bucs Talk. Thank you, Gene, for allowing me to be a part of this show. And going forward, I can't wait to see what we can do as far as this show and also for my site. And it's going to be a really good partnership, I think, going forward. And I just want to say it's going to be an awesome season. I think the expectations are very high, and I think they should be. This team is probably the most talented we've had in quite some time. But really, just a thank you to all the supporters of Real Bucs Talk and all Bucs fans across the world. I mean, it's really awesome to see this fan base is growing. Stick carriers, Buckaholics, What the Buck, all one big family supporting this team, and it's really a good time to be a Bucs fan. So that's
all right. And something really exciting, the Miami Dolphins, first team we face in the regular season. And special guest next week, we're going to have an affiliate from Dolphins FinCast. What we're trying to do something different than a lot of other Bucs podcasts. Again, I'm not taking anything away from anybody, what they're doing. I love the content. I love talking Bucs. But what we're trying to do is get some different podcasts from the opposing team, get them on and get their perspective on the Bucs and get an idea of what we can expect as Bucs fans from opposing teams. So we have somebody lined up for next week, and then for the Bears game, we have somebody else lined up as well. So be sure to check out the content, and I think you'll really appreciate it. And Michael, I definitely always, people really appreciate you being on here almost as much, probably not as much as I do, but almost as much as I appreciate you being on. And you put up with my madness, and I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right.
It's awesome. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. So again, and as the co-host, we work together. We are a team, and I'm buying sushi because I think that's what the Dolphins are going to end up as when we play them. So it's that.
There we go.
But anyway, thank you everybody for checking us out, and I appreciate your following Buc What You Heard. I will get the I apologize I didn't get SoundCloud up last week, but you will start seeing SoundCloud and Podbean is another one that I'm going to try to get Buc What You Heard on, so that we'll be able to you'll be able to have more options to check us out. So that's it for us, and everybody stay safe and have a great holiday weekend.